Hi, everyone. Dr. Victoria Skirbo, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. And we're going to look at the Astrology of April 2021. I already did my numerology and Kabbalah. If you want to check that out, I think you'll really enjoy it. So let's take a look. We'll get started here as I share my screen with you. Somebody's trying to get my attention. All right, let's see here. Let's start not at the beginning. Oh, goodness gracious. Excuse me a second. Oh, here we go. I did it. Yay. Every time I do it, I get excited because it's not always guaranteed I'm going to do it. All right. So the Astrology of April. So here's a couple of general considerations for the month of April. And I just need to close down my little box here because I can't see what I wrote. Here we go. So the Sun, Mercury, and Venus all spend time in Aries and then Taurus this month, moving from a Mars-ruled sign to a Venus-ruled sign. Mars changes signs this month as well, from mental and polarity-invoking Gemini into more introspective and non-confrontational Cancer, moving the energy of Mars from all over the place to within, from the mental realms to the more emotional realms. So once Mars moves into Cancer, it's in its fall in Cancer, so it's not particularly comfortable. It doesn't function all that well. It's very easy when it's in Cancer for us to become over emotional or to get angry. And it's usually not the situation that we're in that angers us, but maybe something from the past that gets triggered. And so it can be a very sort of moody kind of Mars to have. But it is a great Mars to clean your house. So if you're thinking about like cleaning out and clearing out, the Mars in Cancer is very good for that. So the Sun, Mercury, and Venus will start their synodic cycles with Uranus this month at 11 degrees of Taurus. I talked about that a little bit in my Kabbalah and numerology. There is a new moon at 23 degrees of Aries on the 13th, and a full moon in the sign of Scorpio on the 26th of April. So we start with the new moon in Aries, and then 14 days later, we have the full moon in Scorpio with the sun in Taurus at that time. We also have a Pluto stationing retrograde at 27 degrees of Capricorn on the 27th of April. The Pluto for the United States is at 28 degrees. So this is the Pluto return. Although it doesn't exactly hit the Pluto until 2022, we are in the midst of it. It's actually as intense as it's perhaps been up to this point. And now as Pluto stations and starts moving backwards a little bit, then there'll be a little bit of a little breathing room, but then it's going to come back, right? So it's like we're getting a little bit of space. We're getting a little bit of space with this. So we'll see how that manifests itself. Okay. So let's start. Of course, I know today's the 2nd of April, so but we'll start with April 1st anyway, because that was yesterday, Thursday. The sun in Aries made a trine to the moon in Sagittarius. This is a waning side trine, sharing our understanding, our knowledge, and it's a trine of social rewards. So you may see that your good work is being appreciated on a day like that. Today, the 2nd of April, we have a Mercury sextile Pluto. This is occurring at 27 degrees of Pisces. Mercury's in Pisces. Of course, Pluto is in Capricorn. And Pluto, from all intents and purposes, is standing still this month. It does, change direction. It's still, it's moving, but slowly. And so it's building up all of this pressure around that 27th degree of Capricorn. Actually, you know what? I think I missed something. Hold on one second here. I finally learned how to go back on these things. So this waning, this sextile, it says waxing trine, but it's not. It should say waxing sextile. Is an opening of the lines of communication and a good time for information gathering. The interesting thing about Mercury and Pluto, and I said this morning in my morning, every morning, or as close to morning as I can get. I go out if I can, if it's not too inclement. I go out into my garden and I talk about the astrology of the day. And this is something that I talked about today, that Mercury was the only other god who could go into the underworld and come back unscathed, because Mercury is a conduit of information. It's a conduit of bringing that forth. And with Pluto and Capricorn, some of the information and the information gathering is going to be around people who are in power and the kind of things that they do to stay in power, and the kinds of things that power sort of attracts to them. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to continue to be interesting. And that's the Mercury sextile Pluto that we have today. Oops, I went the wrong way. Didn't know I could go. Well, I guess I did know that. So Saturday, April 3rd, we have Mercury ingressing into Aries. The sun has already ingressed into Aries. Now Mercury follows the sun. The Sabian symbol for 1 degree of Aries is a woman just risen from the sea. A seal is embracing her. The keynote here is emergence of new forms and the potentiality of consciousness. So what I like to do, like every time a planet moves into the sign of Aries, it's a new beginning, it's a new initiation. So just like a woman rising from the sea, coming into consciousness, coming into being, rising from the sea, the great cosmic sea, into our individuality. Our individuality is Aries, right? And we have Chiron in Aries. So what is the wounds around that? What's the wounds around saying who we are, declaring who we are? And we're many things. And at different times in our lives, we would declare ourselves as different things. So a lot of the things that we declare ourselves as are veils. The true who we are is source. And the more that we see that in ourselves, the more we see it in other people, the less we have to hurt one another. Simple. The ruler of Aries is Mars. I like to look to see what Mars is doing when any planet moves into Aries. So this is going to affect Mercury in Aries, the way we communicate. And of course, Mars is in Gemini. So we have a mutual reception here. So this is very powerful. It's very powerful. It says a large archaic volume reveals a traditional wisdom. The keynote here is contacting the all-human planetary mind underlying any culture and personal mentality. When I was doing the numerology and the Kabbalah, the path of 2021 that is activated, the 5, the Hierophant, is about that traditional wisdom that we get and that we have through previous incarnations and through what other, sages have left, right? What did they say? What did they write? How did they live their lives? So here's Mercury's ingress into Aries. Where is it? Mercury, here she is. Here it is. Mercury is androgynous. It's a hermaphrodite, I guess. So you have Mercury in Aries, and there's Mars. And Mars is just coming off that conjunction to the North Node. And it is starting, it's getting closer to a square to Neptune. So this month we have a Mars-Neptune square. First quarter, Christ in action. But when you're dealing with Neptune, sometimes it's hard to discern what exactly you have to do. With Mars in Gemini, I would say you have to open your mind. Okay, so we have April 4th, we have a last quarter square to the moon, a crisis in consciousness. This is part of the lunation cycle. This is the 3/4 place from the new moon in Pisces. And I have my new moon in Pisces candle burning right now with my celestialite, my petrified wood. And this is the candle that I lit for the full moon, the new moon in Pisces. I believe I also got together with two of my friends, two of my students who used to come to my space before COVID, and we would do meditation every other week, and we would have astrology classes, and we do different things here. And so it had been a long time since their energy had been here, and they were here, and we got to do that new moon together. So now we're about 3/4 around that new moon, and we have the sun here at 15 degrees of. Let me find my. I can't find my little. Where the heck did my cursor go? Oh, here it is. So I always do that. I always lose it. I should put like a big thumb on it or something. I don't know. I should see if I have the technology for that. We have the sun here at 15 degrees of Aries. Now that's significant because 15 degrees is the middle degree, right, of a sign. So in its own way, it's well, you can't really say that with Aries, because Aries is most like Aries at the first couple of degrees of Aries. It's different. The fixed signs are more like themselves at the beginning of the degrees, and the mutables are more like themselves at the end degrees, right? But it is 15 degrees, so it's like halfway through Aries already, the sun, and then making a square to the moon in Capricorn. So this is a crisis in consciousness, and the moon in Capricorn is a moon that where we can suppress our feelings. It's repressed. It can be repressed emotions, and of course, it can be our emotions that we feel when we come up against people in authority. We can see this happening in America with the George Floyd trial, right? There's that energy. The young man, Aries, George Floyd, comes up against the rule, right? The police, but the police are not right? They're just not. And and so we have that crisis in consciousness, and we ask, do they really know what's best? Right? I mean, most white people would say, yes, they do. Unfortunately, most people of color would probably say something different. And it's based on the wisdom of their own experience. They're not making it up. They're living it in a way that we will never live it if you have white skin. Okay. April 6th, Tuesday, we have Venus make a sextile to Mars. This is a waning sextile. This is a sextile of progressive change. It has the energy of Aquarius. The synodic cycle between Venus and Mars is a 2-year cycle. So its initial conjunction happened in 2019. It was August 24th. And they came together at 5 degrees of Virgo. This 2-year synodic cycle that started in 2019 and the synodic cycle that began in 2017 both occurred in Virgo. The next synodic cycle, which is happening this year, 2021, will be in Leo. So it's shifting. But the last 4 years, about 4 years now, we've been working with fixing what is broken in the way we relate. Virgo, making adjustments, being humble, doing the work, analyzing, seeing what needs to change to make it better and to make us work better together. So the Sabian symbol for 5 degrees of Virgo, which was the beginning of this cycle, is a man becoming aware of nature spirits and normally unseen spiritual agencies. This is opening to new levels of consciousness. This is the relationship planetary pair, the planetary pair of relationship, Venus and Mars. It's also how we, our internal masculine and feminine, get along. So we have an opportunity to change and shift the way we relate in a more progressive, humanitarian, community-oriented, awakened and enlightened way. So I wrote here the last 2 cycles were both in Virgo, or the archetype of making adjustments. And the next synodic cycle will be in Leo. And this is the sign associated, of course, with love. On April 9th, Mars finally makes it to that square to Neptune. This is a crisis in action square. It occurs with Mars at 22 degrees of Gemini and Neptune at 22 degrees of Pisces. This was actually seated back on June 13th of 2020 when these 2 planets were conjoined at 21 degrees of Pisces. So this is a 2-year cycle, started in 2021, and we're only the first quarter, right? We're only at the first quarter. The reason for that, why has it taken so long to get to that first quarter, is because Mars was retrograde in Aries. And Mars was in Aries for 6 months during its forward, back, and forward cycle. So it spent a lot of time in that initiating energy of Aries, which was happening in 2020, a 4 vibration, right? So now we're in the 5 vibration of 2021, and we're sort of moving on what was seeded in 2020. So the Sabian symbol for 21 of Pisces is under the watchful and kind eye of a Chinese servant. A girl fondles a little white lamb. It's interesting that the Chinese servant is called, the image of the Chinese servant is called forth. You know, here in this country, been having a lot of violence against Asians because of a China virus, as a certain individual called it, which of course is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But people are afraid, and they need somebody to blame. Unfortunately, but that doesn't work, right? So it says growth in consciousness in its earliest tactile awareness of the wonders of unsophisticated living. So the Sabian symbol for the 22 degrees of Gemini, where Mars is now, this is the first quarter square. Dancing couples at a harvest festival, the wholesome enjoyment of organic processes and emotional drives. A crisis in action, 22 degrees of Pisces, a prophet carrying tablets of a new law is walking down the slopes of Mount Sinai. The need to bring down to the level of everyday existence the clear realizations made manifest in a great peak experience. This can be the experience of 2020. Was it a peak experience? Well, it was probably a peak of something. Maybe it was the peak of insanity. Maybe it was the peak of desperation. Maybe it was the peak of spiritual enlightenment. Maybe it was the peak of realizing that how you've spent your life is not the way you want to continue spending your life. There was some sort of peak experience. And the Mars, the planet of action, is saying, go out and dance. Enjoy your life, enjoy your body, enjoy moving your body, enjoy the music, enjoy the joyfulness of being incarnate. You know, get out of your head and get into your body. So now we're in week 2. Week 2, actually, I think we've been in week 2, sorry. April 10th, Saturday, we have Mercury making a waxing sextile to Saturn. This is at 13 degrees of Aries and Aquarius. Again, these are Gemini side sextiles, and so it is about gathering information. And of course, Saturn is about structure. And so finding out about the structures of things, sort of new ideas on how to restructure things. And we just had Biden just put out his infrastructure thing, right? So this is that. This is the infrastructure. This is, let's get the information. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what we're going to do. How are we going to fix it? I watched Rachel Maddow last night, and she was talking about that Mitch McConnell had said that the Republicans were not going to, you weren't going to get any votes for the infrastructure project. And Rachel Maddow's like, great. So we don't have to pretend that we're dealing with you. We just have to deal with each other and figure out if we're going to make it bigger, and who's, it's going to be a discussion among Democrats. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So this was actually seated back on January 9th, 2021. That was 3 days after the insurrection at 3 degrees of Aquarius. So we had the knowledge of the insurrection at this point. It had happened, the moment, the tower moment, perhaps, for the country. But this was after that, and it was at 3 degrees of Aquarius. And it says, a deserter from the Navy. The individual's self-realization through a crucial repudiation of collective status, which has become unbearable. This is a seed that is planted between Mercury and Saturn. The old structures have become unbearable. And so it's about evaluating and analyzing and figuring out a new way to restructure things in such a way that is more fair. Simple, simple, simple. We also have Venus sextiling Jupiter. So these are two really nice sextiles. Again, this is a Gemini side sextile. So it is about opening lines of communication and gathering information, curiosity, communication, talking to people. And Jupiter and Venus are the benefics. So how can I help you? How can you help me? How can we work together to help each other? How can we work together to help the community? How can we move forward? What are we going to do? So this is the opening, sort of like a handshake. It's like, yeah, hey, how you doing? What are we going to do now? Let's roll up our sleeves and do something, right? But in a very Venusian way. And Jupiter, which is, bigger is better, right? So this can be, the infrastructure bill getting passed, or certainly on its way. I was watching, of course, I was watching Marianne. I love her. And she did a thing on whether the infrastructure bill was going to get through, Biden's infrastructure bill was going to get through. And it was a resounding yes. It was a resounding yes. So that was good news. This particular synodic cycle was seated back on February 11th, when we had a conjunction at 13 degrees of Aquarius, which is interesting because that's where Saturn is, right? 13 degrees of Aquarius. So that's an interesting coincidence. And 13 degrees of Aquarius is a barometer. That was the symbol. The ability to discover basic natural facts that allow us to plan in advance for action. We have all the information. We have all the talent. People definitely want something different. So this is an exciting time. This is an exciting, exciting time. Both sextiles open the lines of communication and stimulate information gathering and learning. This is a great time to learn something new. For those of you who might be interested in astrology, maybe a beginner's astrology course, or a Kabbalah course, or any course, a language course, a cooking course. What's going to help you? What's going to help you to see a bigger picture, Jupiter? What's going to help you to create the structures that you need? Saturn. What information? Mercury. And what do you love to do? Venus. I mean, simple, really, if we allow ourselves. So week 3. Week 3, we have that new moon. The new moon occurs on the 11th, which is the Sunday, is at 23 degrees of Aries. The Sabian symbol for 23 degrees of Aries is a pregnant woman in a light summer dress. And the keynote here is fecundity. So this is a time of great potential to build 4 monthly vibration, to change the way that we live 5 universal year vibration, based on the wisdom, the 9 of April 2021. It says masculine aggressiveness and a woman's desire for fulfillment, phases 21 and 22, are integrated and realized in an expected child. This threefold sequence can be seen operating at several levels. And the third term, the child, can take various emotional and cultural forms. Basic meaning remains the same. Summer is a period of fruition. Man at the receptive woman level reaps the fruits of his dynamic activity. So how you choose and what you choose to inseminate at this time is what is going to come into manifestation this summer. It'd be interesting to see where you have 23 degrees of Aries in your chart, because that is where you have a new beginning. So this is the chart. We can see that the sun and the moon at 22-24 rounded off to 23 degrees of Aries. It is conjunct Eris, the goddess of discord. It's in a close conjunction to Ceres. Ceres is a mother goddess. It's also a goddess of grief. So this is, and we have it conjunct Venus in Aries. We have Venus and Eris together in Aries. So this is really, it's a birth, it's an energy, it's the energy of Aries is masculine, but with all this feminine energy around it and this sort of warrior nature, feminine energy. It's a very, very exciting time. She's also trine a stationary Juno. There is a woman in power that is going to wield that power. Here in Massachusetts, our mayor of Boston, not my mayor, but the Boston mayor, was made the Secretary of Labor. And so a woman, the lieutenant mayor, or what, I don't know what you call it, the acting mayor, the second in charge, is, I believe, a Black woman. And she's the first woman and the first woman of color to run Boston. Boston is very male and very white in its way, in the way it sort of its power structures generally. So that was a change. So I can see that change here in America. So we'll see that the rising of the feminine. One of the things that Biden talked about was getting dark money out of politics. If in fact they can do that, which would be great. But if in fact they could do that, and being in politics was no longer as financially lucrative, I bet usually that's when more women come in, because they're doing it because it's not the money that they're seeking. They're seeking to help the situation. I saw that in medicine, chiropractic as well. When I went to school, there was a quarter of us were women. And when I went back, maybe 10 or 15 years later, there were more women enrolled. It was like 51% women. So it's changing. It's changing because, things were changing. It was becoming less lucrative in its way. But And I think medicine is probably a similar experience, but I can't speak from my own experience with that because I was not involved in medical doctors. Yeah, so that's more, and we also have this this new moon in a sextile to Mars. And this is a progressive sextile. The sun and the moon to Mars is progressive action. Progressive action. All right, let's see. That was my husband telling me it's time to eat, but I have a video to do, so I will continue. On Sunday, we also have a first quarter square between Venus and Pluto. This is again at 27 degrees, Aries, Capricorn. A crisis in action. This was seated back on the 28th of January, 2021 at 26 degrees of Capricorn. The Sabian symbol for 26 degrees of Capricorn is a nature spirit dancing in an iridescent mist of a waterfall. The ability to perceive the hidden and creative spirit of natural phenomena. That's the second one that was dealing with sort of natural nature spirits. So the core of this is a better relationship with nature. At 27 degrees of Aries, where the position of Venus in this first quarter square of Pluto and Venus, through imagination, a lost opportunity is regained. The imagination is the power of the feminine. The imaginative mind is the feminine, the creative mind, the right brain. The keynote here is a revision of attitude and inner reevaluation. So if you think something is lost, perhaps it's not. Perhaps it's a reimagining that needs to happen. And then the Pluto position, pilgrims climbing the steps leading to a mountain shrine, the ascent of individualized consciousness to the highest realizations reached by spiritual leaders of its culture. So this is through an imagination and through walking the path of those who walked before us, the wisdom of that who walked before us. We're in a 5-year, the Hierophant, utilizing that along with reimagination and a rising feminine. Oh my God, there's nothing we can't manifest. There's nothing we can't do. And here is the chart. Here's the chart for that. We have the initial conjunction right here. This was actually the chart for that. And we had the initial conjunction right up at the top of the chart. Right up at the top of the chart. And within orb of Saturn. Within orb of Saturn. So Saturn brings structure. And here we have the square. And of course, we can see that we're still in the new moon. This is the same day as the new moon, but there's Venus and there's Pluto. And this is the chart for the US, because I did it to Washington, D.C. And this is Pluto in the second house. And that's where Pluto is in the Sibley chart. And, you know, Pluto, government and Capricorn, money. And then we have Venus in the fifth house. It's like a gift. It's like a gift. And the gift of like a leg up. It's not like a gift, everything is being given to you and you don't have to do any work. No, it's like a boost. So you know that you're going in the right direction. Tuesday, August 13th, April 13th, we have the Sun conjunct Eris, right? At 25 degrees of Aries, the possibility for man to gain experience at 2 levels of being, the revelation of new potentialities. In some unspecified way, the symbol is a guarantee that man can operate successfully at 2 levels of consciousness if he has previously met the condition mentioned in the preceding symbol, which was to be open. Be able and willing to shape your translucent mind into the form revealing spiritual fulfillment. And you will be able to experience life and power on inner as well as outer planes. This is implied a message. This implied message is one of faith. Man can only truly experience what he deeply believes he can experience. This is the last stage of this fifth fivefold sequence. It announces the possibility of a new step in evolution, but it is still only a possibility, a promise. The individual is truly on probation. So we are being given opportunity to evolve. The choice to evolve is yours. If you don't evolve in this lifetime, in this body, you will be given another opportunity in a different body, in a different lifetime. But why wait? Here is the Sun Eris conjunction. This is for the US because it's erected for Washington. It's occurring in the 8th house, Scorpio house, still in a close conjunction to Venus and Ceres and Mercury. Ceres, the goddess of the grain, the goddess of grief. Ceres is actually sitting on the Chiron of the United States. And so we may hear something on this day. Maybe something will come down in the George Floyd trial. I don't know what the time frame is on that, but this is the kind of energy that's being activated. On the 13th, on Tuesday, the Sun sextiles Mars. This is a waning sextile. Progressive change is possible. This is part of a synodic cycle that began on September 2nd of 2019 at 10 degrees of Virgo, the Sabian symbol for that. Now we are almost through this cycle. The waning sextile is a 300-degree point in the 360-degree circle. Two heads looking out beyond the shadow. The growth of true understanding born out of a transcendence of duality, even while immersed in the world of duality. We're talking about working on different levels, right? Being aware of what's going on here and being aware of what's going on the higher planes. We have the capacity, we have the ability. We just have to get our minds, our body, our emotions aligned up in such a way that we can hold that space. It's very easy to get knocked off of center when you're juggling. Like, it's one thing to stand there and somebody tries to knock you over, but if you're juggling two different realities, you have to concentrate on not dropping the balls. You have to make sure your feet are really, really strong, and that you have your rhythm. So if somebody comes along and pushes you, you won't fall over. You may drop a ball, but you can always pick the ball up again. It's easier to pick up the ball than to pick up yourself. At least that's true of me when I fall on the ground. All right. So the key word here is self-transcending activity of the mind. So we transcending the small self and moving into the large self. On the 14th, Venus ingresses into Taurus. Venus is in her dignity. Now, she did a lot of work when Venus was in Aries. It's not her normal thing. It's not usually the energy she likes to work with, but she'll roll up her sleeves when she has to. She'll get all bitchy on you. But now she moves into Taurus. Now she's in her element, her earthly element. So this sort of stabilizes things a bit. On the 15th, we have the Sun sextile Jupiter. The Sun and Jupiter are the two largest things in the solar system. So when they connect, it's big. And a sextile is it's an opportunistic, it's mentally stimulating. It has that Gemini quality. So we're still talking about, so more and more information, we're going to start to understand things. There were things that were happening that we knew we didn't have the story. We're getting the story now. We're getting the story. And it's not about, like, I think in part, it's like, I knew that was happening, and there it is, it's happening. So it's like the lies and the illusions they're sort of being cleared out in their way. And hopefully people will see it for what it is. So this synodic cycle began on January 28th. That's when the Sun and Jupiter were conjoined, and it was at 10 degrees of Aquarius. So this aspect that's happening on Thursday is the opening the lines of communication. More information is coming out about something specific around that end of January. 10 degrees of Aquarius, a man who had for a time become the embodiment of a popular ideal is made to realize that the person he is not, as a person, he is not the ideal. I'm not going to mention who I think this is because you guys know it, but this is like this is an oh shit moment for that individual, I think, and for the people who were true believers. So the need to deal with human beings as persons rather than as screens upon which one projects one's dreams and ideals. One of the reasons that I think the 45th Prezzo was so popular was because people could see themselves in him, and they would only want to see the things they wanted to see in him and sort of ride the wave of him. But that's not a full picture, and that's not a full wave, and that's just a part of a way of being that in a way he was so pure at. Me, I, the pinnacle of narcissism. And we realize that we need each other. We need each other. And so no man is an island. And he had plenty of people who were helping him. He just never gave them any credit. All right. On the 16th of Friday, we have the Sun making a first quarter square to Pluto. As the planets move into Aries, they're going to be making the squares to the Pluto, whatever other planet it was, synodic cycle, because all those began in the sign of Capricorn, where Pluto is. So now we have the seeds are planted like in January, maybe some in February. I think it was mostly in January, and now the action is being taken. So that was at 25 degrees of Capricorn, a store filled with precious Oriental rugs, the use of cultural and artistic processes as means to enhance personal comfort and appreciation. So now we're at 27 degrees of Capricorn for Pluto. Of course, it's sitting at that 27th degree. It's going to be at the 27th degree all month, and then it goes retrograde at the 27th degree. Pilgrims climb the steps leading to the mountain shrine. So that 27 degree mark is very important. What do those people who are spiritual leaders, what has their experience shown? We need to follow that, but not blindly. It's not a blind faith. It's a faith wide open. It's your faith with your eyes wide open and your heart open and your third eye open. It's not coming from a place of, it can come from a place of fear, and we can see that manifest itself. But for you, is that where you want to come from? That's the question. Okay, let's see here. The Sun is at 27 of Aries. Through imagination, a lost opportunity is regained. There we go. Utilizing your imagination. This time it's the Sun, right? This time it's the Sun at that degree. And here we have the Sun Pluto. This was the initial conjunction right here. We have the Sun and Pluto. And then here we have, let's see, where's Pluto? Here's the Sun, and here's Pluto. Pluto's in the 8th house. Sun is in the 11th house. This could also be the infrastructure bills, and the bills, the stuff to help people. This could even be the money coming to help people. Okay, let's see. What's next? We're still in week 3, April 17th. We have a Mars trine Jupiter. This is a waxing, creative, and self-expressive trine. This has the energy of Leo. We have Mars at 27 degrees of Gemini, and 27 degrees of Gemini is a gypsy emerging from a forest wherein her tribe is encamped, reaching out towards participation in the larger whole. So this is about sort of coming out of the clan, right? Coming out of the clan with all that experience and all that knowledge that you received from the clan as in the family clan, like not the other clan. Trine, Jupiter in Aquarius, 27 degrees of Aquarius, an ancient pottery bowl filled with fresh violets. The importance of traditional skills and artistic values deeply rooted in man's instinctive feelings as frames of reference for man's most authentic emotions. So this isn't just talking about our what we know in our minds, what we learned as sages from past lives, but this is also about like hooking into the creativity and the creative imagination. It's not just the mind, but it's the mind and it's the creative imagination and all of it coming together. This is a building month for. This is about putting in the pillars and what you're going to grow, what you're going to build from that. How are you building your life to sustain and to withstand the change that's coming and the change that we're all part of? This is a creative expression of the initial conjunction of Mars and Jupiter that occurred on March 20th, 2020. So again, why was it so long ago? Is because Mars was retrograde. And it lengthens the time that it takes, right, to get to this point. A soldier receiving 2 awards for bravery in combat. The reward offered by society for fulfillment of an individual's responsibility. This is the same degree, the 23rd degree of Capricorn, that we had the Pluto-Saturn conjunction of January 2020. Now, one of the things that this can stimulate as well, we could see some COVID numbers going up with this. We just have to learn how to live with this. We have to learn how to live in this new reality. And so we have to be brave. We have to live in a new reality, but not get caught up in fear, because fear takes us down the rabbit hole. And love and faith and positive imagination and visualizing ourselves healed and healing and getting stronger and stronger brings us up to a higher level. What is your choice? Mercury sextile Jupiter in Aries Aquarius, 27 degrees. Again, we have the lines of communication opening. Again, this is 27 degrees Mercury at, is it? Yes, 27 degrees of Aries. Through imagination, a lost opportunities regained. How many times do I have to say this? Jupiter at 27 degrees of Aquarius, an ancient pottery bowl filled with fresh violets. Mercury sextile Mars at 27 degrees of Aries and Gemini. Through imagination, a lost opportunities regained. This is the same freaking day, right? We have Mercury sextiling Jupiter and Mercury sextiling Mars. 27 degrees of Gemini, a gypsy emerging from the forest where her tribe is encamped. So we have all of this connection to moving out, reimagining, but that reimagining is based on knowledge that we've had from other times and other lifetimes and perhaps other dimensions, how to do it better, how to build back better. Joe, I had a dream about Joe. I had a dream that my husband and I were hanging out with Joe Biden, and he was a great guy. And he was the thing that he was like very like he had his ideas, But then when we mentioned something that like intrigued him, he was open to it. So in my dream, he was very open to new ideas. And what does he have to lose? He's 78. He sees what he has to do. He knows what he has to do. He's going to do it. He's going to get pushback from some people, but he's still going to do it. I think we're going to be surprised just how well he does it, or just how well it gets done. And then, of course, we do our part because we have the power too. It's not just Joe. And here's the Pluto Mercury. Here's the conjunction. January 4th. This was 2 days before the insurrection. Mercury and Pluto. Mercury and a first quarter square to Pluto. I think I did this out of turn, but here's the first quarter square to Pluto. Where is it? Here's boop, boop, boop. There's Pluto. And first quarter square with Mercury. Mercury should be over here. Here we go. Right there, 7th house. Let's talk it over. Okay, April 4th, we have Mars in conjunct Pluto at 27 Gemini Capricorn. This is a gibbous phase in conjunct. Inconjuncts are irritating. We need to make some mental adjustments around our desire nature. Can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need. Oh, baby. And what's important about Mars and Pluto is that Mars is the lower octave of Pluto. Mars is our conscious desires. Pluto is our unconscious desires. Pluto, when Mars and Pluto made their conjunction, Pluto seeded Mars with a new desire, something that we had not yet known. And because it occurred in Capricorn, it has to do with structure of things. It has to do with power and our relationship to power, our own inner power. This is a time to be humble. This is a time to be humble. You do not have all the answers. I don't have them all. You don't have them all. We need to be open and willing to change. We need to be open and willing to change our minds about things. It's important. We have to be a little more fluid at this time. And we have Mercury making a superior conjunction to the Sun today, the 18th, the Sunday, at 30 degrees of Aries. A duck pond and its brood says the realization of natural boundaries. I want to read this to you. It's long, but it's good. What is shown here is that every form of activity has its limits, and that even the consciousness that has been able to get a glimpse of universal order has to bring it down to its own karmic field of operation. The message of harmony it has heard inwardly. Peace and inner contentment with one's essential destiny or dharma is required to meet the everyday world. The mystic may experience flights of imagination and transcendent vision, but he must return to the concrete earth and to his task in his social environment. Extensive as the latter may seem, it is still very small compared to the galactic field. It is indeed the duck pond compared to the ocean, but it is there that the substance for concrete action has to be found, and every effective activity has to be focused. Thus, the boundaries imposed by the very nature of this activity have to be consciously accepted. And so take the knowledge that you have and apply it to the moment that you're in. And that's how things work the best. So this is, let's see, we have Mercury and the Sun ingress into Taurus. It occurs on the same day, the 29th of April. And here we have the Sun. The Sun ingresses into Taurus at, I'm trying to read this, 4:33 p.m. on the East Coast. And Mercury goes in at, looks like 6:29 maybe a.m. So it looks like Mercury goes in first, right? That's PM, yeah. So Mercury goes into Taurus first, and then Sun goes into Taurus. So, so both of these planets go into the first degree of Taurus. The Sabian symbol for that is a clear mountain stream, the pure, uncontaminated, and spontaneous manifestation of one's own nature. Here we see life substance in its original dynamic form as it emerged from its spiritual source. It is true, whatever the nature of the source may be. In the sense of the mountain stream, it's conditioned by the nature of the soil and by all the forces which in the past have formed the mountain's rock strata, that is to say, by past history. Yet out of the past, pure, new, unadulterated release of potentiality has emerged. It is ready to perform whatever work its dharma his dharma is to accomplish. Matter is still imbued with great potential energy, energy being matter at its source. It's flowing irresistibly towards its own destiny. It is simply its own nature. So this is asking us to be who we are. Venus, as the ruler of Taurus, is at 7 degrees of Taurus. The Sabian symbol for 7 degrees of Taurus is a woman of Samaria at the ancestral well, the meeting of the traditional past and the creative spirit pointing to the future. Again, the lessons of the past aligned with the creative imagination of the present creates our future. I'm still doing my video.
Did you pause it?
No.
It's 8 o'clock. Last meeting for you.
Okay. Thank you. On the 19th of April, we have the sun making a first quarter square to the moon. This is the crisis in action of the new moon in Aries. We have the sun at 1 degrees of Taurus and the moon at 1 degrees of Leo. The Sabian symbol, a clear mountain stream, square. The Sabian symbol for 1 degree of Leo, blood rushes to a man's head as his vital energies are mobilized under a new spur of ambition. So this really is about moving and acting upon your knowledge and your imagination to create the structures needed to move forward. On the 22nd of April, which happens to be Earth Day, Venus, the ruler of Taurus, conjoins Uranus in Taurus at 11 degrees. The Sabian symbol for 11 degrees of Taurus, a woman watering flowers in her garden. Development of the powers of the mind on which ego-based consciousness is based. Cultivation. This is about cultivating, planting the seeds, and nurturing your creations. On the 23rd, Mars ingresses into Cancer, the first degree of Cancer. On a ship, sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. A radical change of allegiance, externalized in a symbolic act, a point of no return. The key word here is reorientation. We had a solar eclipse, total solar eclipse on this point last year, which is interesting. The first degree of Cancer solar eclipse, which would normally be like a huge thing. It was a huge eclipse. I mean, check out Gemini Brett's work on this. It's amazing. But it happened in such a jam-packed year of astrology that it sort of went under the radar, if it's even possible. But we do have, Mars now activating that point. And if I'm correct, this is the first time Mars has been to that point. So something that occurred during that eclipse, which occurred on the summer solstice, is now getting activated again through Mars moving into Cancer. The moon, which is the ruler of Cancer, if you could let me look at that, is at 14 degrees of Virgo, an aristocratic family tree, a deep reliance upon ancestral roots of individual character, root power. We might actually, this may have something to do with the royals, Prince William has his son at this degree, 1 degree of, well, 0 something of Cancer. And he was born on an eclipse. And Mars is activating that in his chart. So we'll see what happens there. And there's Mars ingress into Cancer. Where's Mars over here? Cancer. Here she is. There's Mars in Cancer. Sextile the Sun. That's a little wide for a sextile to Mercury. Let's see if it's doing anything else. Trining the Earth, right? That's the Earth, actually. That's what that is. And yeah, so that looks, there might be something down here. I can't see it. All right, so we're still in week 4. Oh yeah, so this is the last day. Week 4 seemed very long. Mercury conjunct Uranus at 11 degrees of Taurus. Mercury is the planet of our mind, and Uranus is the planet of our higher mind, and they conjunct. This is when the higher mind seats the lower mind, and it's at 11 degrees of Taurus, the woman watering flowers in her garden. Such a powerfully creative time to plant seeds for the future. But we can't get complacent, because once the seeds are planted, we have to take care of the plants. Week 5, made it. We have on the same day, one of these like crazy, this happens again, a first quarter square between Venus and Saturn, and a first quarter square between Mercury and Saturn. Venus and Mercury are very close to each other. They both occur at 13 degrees of Taurus and 13 degrees of Aquarius. Saturn, of course, being in Aquarius, Venus and Mercury being in Taurus. 13 of Taurus, a porter carrying a heavy bag, self-mobilization for social advantage, a compulsion for gain. So that is the symbol for Venus and Mercury. And Aquarius, a barometer, the ability to discover basic natural facts that allow us to plan, advance for action, anticipation. So there's an energy for moving forward, but we have to take into consideration the situation that we find ourselves in and what we can and cannot do at this point. We have to be aware of the barometer of society. We can't just go out there and say, I'm going to fix everything, blah, blah, without seeing where everything is sort of set up. So where you can do your best work without getting in trouble. And I don't mean like getting in trouble, like getting arrested, but, you know, pushing yourself too far or overextending yourself. You have to be careful of that. And then on the 26th, we have a full moon in Scorpio. And we can see here the moon is at 8 degrees of Scorpio. This is for Washington, D.C. This is the 11th house, the sun at 8 degrees of Taurus, very close to its conjunction with Uranus, close to let's see, within looks like 8 degrees and maybe 9 degrees of Venus and Mercury. This is a point of awareness. This full moon is square. Saturn is square. The moon and Saturn is square the sun here, about 5 degrees. It's a little wide, but it's there. And Taurus and Scorpio is life and death. It's resources and shared resources. And then Saturn is society saying, hey, you have to pay you need help and you need to pay your fair share. Ooh, wow, what a concept. So the sun is at 8 degrees of Taurus, a sleigh on land uncovered by snow, the value of anticipating and preparing for expectable conditions. Realize the value of future-oriented imagination, but also of relying upon the natural order of unfoldment of all life processes. So it's good to go in the direction of progress, but you can't push progress. Progress is going to unfold in the way it does. You have to keep your intention and your focus and then your energy in the direction and allow for the mutations that need to occur in order for you, for whatever your plan is to happen in the best possible way. 8 degrees of Scorpio, this is where the moon is, a calm lake bathed in moonlight, a quiet openness to higher inspirations. It tells us that beyond all efforts lays the need for peace and the readiness to accept the illumination from above. The key word here is quiescence, quiescence. And so we need to be prepared and open at the same time. April 27th, we have Pluto stationing retrograde at 27 degrees of Capricorn. Pilgrims climbing the steps leading to a mountain shrine. The ascent of the individualized consciousness to the highest realizations reached by spiritual leaders of its own culture. The key word, upreaching. With Pluto in Capricorn moving retrograde, I think the money, the plutocrats are going to have to take a step back, and they're going to have to start moving back while the people move forward, because the plutocrats can't do it without the people anyway. So why try to have everything? It's time for a redistribution of wealth. On Thursday, we have a sextile between Mercury and Neptune. This is the lines of communication to spirit are open. And what was that? Ethyl to Tilly, remember that? And April 30th, we have the Sun conjunct Uranus at what? 11 degrees of Taurus. So now the Sun joins the party, the 11 degree of Taurus party, a woman watering flowers in her garden. And here is that conjunction. It is occurring in the 8th house. The 8th house is a relationship house. It's a relationship house. It is square Saturn. It's in conjunct the South Node. And it is sextile Mars. It's wide sextile, but it's sextile Mars. And it's trine Vesta. Vesta in Virgo. What we focus upon, what we devote ourselves to, Virgo, is service. How can you be of service in your own way to the greater whole? Okay, so that's that. All right, guys, I know that was kind of long and we had a little interruption because my mother's waiting for me to eat dinner. So I better go do that. I want you to have a great April. I was going to do a card reading, but this kind of went over. I will do a card reading for April, but I probably won't do that until tomorrow. So much love, everyone. If you enjoy these, please, you can have a reading with me. I do offer those. You can contact me. The links are below. And it's going to be a very exciting month. A lot of potential, a lot of hard work. Keep focused. Don't get distracted. Do your best. Take care of your body and love yourself and love others. I love you all. Take care. And I will see you again next month. Ciao.